Hey Chris, Leadership Network team, and all the participants in the hackathon. I'm Tim Hawks. It's a privilege to be talking to you all today, and I'm the pastor of Hill Country Bible Church in Austin, Texas. And I'm part of a network, a national network of pastors who have a desire to re-evangelize the United States. Some of you may be thinking, like, what do you mean by that? Well, just a few statistics. In 1990, 4% of the people in the U.S. said that they had no religion. That number doubled in 2000 to 8%, and in 2010 it doubled again to 15%, and now it stands at 19%. In other words, as this number continues to double, and by the way, it's mostly among the younger generation, we could be facing the largest decline of Christianity in the largest Christian nation that's ever existed on the planet to date. And because of that, we feel a sense of desperation. We believe that if we do not engage this world, engage the people in the United States with the gospel of Jesus Christ, and do that soon, we could possibly be the presiding over the greatest decline. And as pastors, we don't want to see that happen on our watch. When I say we, you might wonder who we are. Well, actually, we're not a denomination. There's not really any hierarchy or structure. We are a group of pastors in our own cities that have felt this challenge, felt this call, and begun to unify and mobilize the church to think differently about how we approach reaching the city with the gospel. And we're starting to see this take place on a national level. There are 184 cities in the United States that have a population of 250,000 or more, and that represents 75% of the population of the United States. Currently, 29 of those cities have a Christ Together presence. In other words, a group of local pastors in that city who are working to unify the church, to mobilize people, to reach their friends and neighbors, to reach the city with the gospel of Jesus Christ. The goal is that over the next 10 years, the network would expand into every one of those 184 cities with a desire that we would actually re-evangelize the United States before this generation passes off the scene. Now, how we go about doing that, we've got multiple different strategies. We're actually encouraging every city and every group of pastors in that city to pray, seek the Spirit, come up with their own strategy. But one of the things that we're approaching in Austin, we've been working at this for about 5 years, and we've had up to 377 churches at one time go through a major outreach to the city. But one of the things we're doing in Austin over the next 2 years is we're proposing and planning and putting together a Art of Neighboring campaign. In other words, the Church of Jesus Christ sponsoring this concept of neighboring citywide. In other words, what we're actually saying is that when Jesus Christ told his followers that the greatest commandment was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and the second one is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself, that he may have actually meant your actual neighbors, the people that live in the geography or the proximity around you. And one of the things that we realize is that many Christians feel like their primary expression of their faith takes place within the four walls of the church or within the structured activities of the church, and therefore many Christians have really very little contact, very little heart and passion for the people that are all around them. A few years ago, a couple friends of mine, Dave Runyon and Jay Pathak, wrote a book called The Art of Neighboring, just challenging Christians to get out and get to know their neighbors. In fact, it's so simple that they came up with this little block map where you put your home or your residence in the center, and then you see if you can write down the names of the people that live closest to you, those 8 neighbors that live in close proximity to you. And it's amazing when challenged to take that little block map challenge, how many Christians, how many pastors really don't even know the names of the people living around them, much less have a redemptive heart for them. And so ultimately our goal would be to mobilize 500 churches in Austin who would teach, encourage, and challenge first their pastors and staff and then their people to get to know the names of the people around them, begin to pray for them, begin to get to know them, and begin to try to figure out how they can encourage them to explore faith in Jesus Christ. In doing that, we believe that we could touch over 1 million people in Greater Austin. Really a phenomenal number. We're approaching 2 million, but about 1 million of people could be touched in that somebody would get to know their name. Someone from a Christian church would get to know their name, begin to pray for them, begin to find out what's going on in their life, and in doing that, would begin to encourage them to come to faith in Jesus Christ, or at least understand the love God has for them in Jesus Christ. Now, taking that up to a higher level, if we could mobilize the church, and this is our plan, to mobilize the church to be good neighbors, to get to know their neighbors, at a time when we're also promoting the value of neighboring at a city level. So think of it this way. Austin, a good neighbor city, is the byline. And literally, there's a period of several months where we're doing advertising on the value of neighboring, billboards, we're doing TV clips, we're using Austin personalities and public figures to encourage people in the value of neighboring. All the statistics demonstrate that life gets better within a city, within a community, even down to the very street level, when people know their neighbors' names, when they're building relationships, when they're working together. And so, while we're encouraging and training and teaching the church to go out and build relationships, we're also telling the city, the Church of Jesus Christ is finally going to obey their leader, Jesus, and do what he told us to do, love our neighbors. So we're sponsoring all through the city these neighborhood conversations, bringing people together, getting to know each other. And we're doing that at the same time when we're advertising it to the city with a goal that the city would catch on, the media would catch on, public figures would catch on, and they would encourage these kinds of things. Ultimately, what we'd love to do would be able to sponsor a discussion in each neighborhood where Christians would invite people over or to a community center, talk about the art of neighboring. When we say the art of neighboring, we're not talking just about issues. Every neighborhood has issues: traffic, taxes, safety. Those things are important, but more than that, we're talking about the soft skills or the soft values that go into long-term relationships. Things like compassion, things like grace versus, say, tolerance, things like conflict resolution, things like forgiveness, things like sacrifice, with a goal that these neighborhoods, people would come together, start talking about these things. We would use some of our public figures in the videos to explain these concepts. We would clearly incorporate some of the teachings of Jesus in there, like the Good Samaritan and other things that highlight the value of these kinds of relationships. And then the end goal would be that each neighborhood would do some kind of a project together that the neighbors would decide to help their neighborhood, and we would collect those stories, show them on the news, highlight them in the city. Our prayer would be that in the end, the public figures in our city would feel like things got better. Crime rate went down, truancy went down, basic city services, there'd be less strain on those because people are knowing each other, encouraging each other, and taking care of each other. But also on a spiritual level, that the Christian people would connect deeply with the people around them for the goal of seeing them come into a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. So I know that's a tall order. Also know that there's a lot of offshoots of that: neighborhood mapping, identifying captains in neighborhoods that people can come to. I know that there's also the challenge to see how we get people of different ethnicities, different socioeconomic backgrounds involved. People in the high-rise apartments downtown, they're hard to get to, even by their own neighbors. In some of the poor neighborhoods, you don't necessarily invite people into your home because when they see your stuff, they may come and get it. So it's not just a suburban thing. We're strategizing for the whole city. And in doing that, too, we also want to include the kids. So how do we get kids to think about neighboring in a positive way? Many kids are afraid because neighbors represent strangers, and how do we break down some of those barriers and still maintain good safety? What does a middle school student think when they think neighboring? Could we do school initiatives, bullying initiatives, helping kids understand how to treat one another at the high school level, where we're starting to develop a concept of what does it mean to be a contributing member to your community, the place where you live, to take responsibility for that. We also have the University of Texas here with over 50,000 students. Is there any kind of initiative to get students to think in terms of giving back to the community in which they live? What are the values of good neighboring, so that wherever they go, they would take that with them? So all of these concepts are something that we're serious about. We're going to put money into this. We're going to put time into this. We're going to push this thing forward. Any ideas, any help, use of technology, video, anything that you guys could do, we would love to get all of your feedback and any of the help that you guys could provide. We also believe that if this would work in Austin, and we could put together a template that could be used in some of the other cities, that this could be a platform for starting these neighboring movements all over the United States. And again, at the end of the day, the goal is to raise the people's awareness of Jesus and the wonderful things he taught, and the opportunity to connect with God in him, which is the gospel. It also gets our people out of simply doing church or church activities and gets them outside the church, into the neighborhood, building relationships where we believe the Holy Spirit could catalyze for eternity and bringing people to faith and re-evangelizing another generation of people. And so, excited to have this opportunity to share with you guys. As you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this. We've been at this for 5 years, and we really believe that God's going to use the art of neighboring, and anything you guys can do to help us, we would just be so grateful to you. So God bless you in your decision making, your journey as you go forward, and thank you for this opportunity.